The White House acknowledged that the latest protests generally were peaceful, but stressed again that President Nixon does not intend to let policy be made in the streets.
It quickly set in that the war raged on. That however proud of ourselves we might have been, we obviously at that point hadn't stopped the war.
The demonstrations in October and November of 1969 did not have the appearance of changing anything because the war went on as before. And none of people who participated knew that the war had been within days or weeks of erupting enormously and becoming much bigger. The bottom line is, I believe we would have had the first nuclear attacks since Nagasaki in 1969 had it not been for the October 15th demonstrations and the demonstrations in November.
At the time, we had no idea. It was only decades later, when the archives were released, that we realized what, in fact, we had accomplished.
We now know we had a big impact on Nixon and Kissinger. What they thought they could get away with in November, namely blowing to bits Vietnam and maybe even using nuclear weapons, they had to take it off the table. There were too many of us who were saying no now.
And when I heard that news, I just cannot express what that meant to me, that after all these years, I finally knew that what we did had made such a significant difference.
Nobody understood at the time that we had prevented an escalation of the war and actually saved people's lives. It tells me that this was the most amazing and most important thing I'd ever done in my life.
The people stopped the war and made the Congress stop the war. And that's what finally brought the war to the end. They thought they could strong-arm and bomb North Vietnam into submission, and that didn't work. And what we found was the limits of U.S. power when you're trying to do the wrong thing in the wrong place.
And the absolutely tortuous, haunting reality hanging over all of this are the casualties. Must remember that when Nixon is inaugurated and Henry Kissinger hired, the names on that long black wall in Washington were only half as long as they ended up being. And absolutely agonizing, mounting casualties on the Vietnamese side. And the price of Nixon's peace with honor would be enormous, and I think in the end, unforgivable.
When I talk to young activists today, one of the points I make is you will not know in the moment the real impact of what you are doing. And you may not know it in a week, you may not know it in a month, you may not know it in a decade, but you are having an impact. It does matter.
Never give up. It's very important. It's easy to get tired, it's easy to get discouraged, but we can't afford that. So don't give up. We didn't give up until it was over.